Alright, this right here is the brand new DJI RS5 gimbal. It's got a new enhanced intelligent tracking module, which can now not only track people, but it will actually track just about anything. It's now got fine-tuning knobs on all the axes, and it's got a brand new briefcase handle with onboard controls. So plenty of things to check out on this new gimbal. DJI is a sponsor of this channel, so they gave me early access to the RS5 gimbal. Let's kick things off with the biggest upgrade on the RS5, and that is this little thing right here, the new enhanced intelligent tracking module. So you might have seen the previous intelligent tracking module on the RS4 or RS4 Mini, and that one was already pretty cool and handy when tracking people for certain shots. It could, for example, help you keep your subject centered or in a certain composition when doing tracking or orbit shots. But it was limited to tracking people only. And right away, a lot of us were like, it would be kind of cool if it could also track objects or cars or basically anything else. Well, DJI listened to that feedback, and they've now upgraded that to the enhanced intelligent tracking module. And this one allows you to track people, vehicles, animals, or basically any object. It's also super easy to use this tracking module. So first off, you need to attach the module to the gimbal, and that's really simple to do. It just snaps on there magnetically, and on the screen it will then say that it's connected. Now, if you remember on the RS4 or RS4 Pro, you needed an extra adapter, so it's nice that now it's all built in on this RS5 gimbal. If you swipe right on the gimbal screen, you now get a real-time view of what the tracking module is seeing. This makes it a lot easier to select and frame what you want to track. Then all you need to do is tap whatever it is that you want to track, and then you can see it's going to lock onto that subject. Once it's in this tracking mode, the module has a green light on the front and on the back, so you get a nice visual cue that tracking is enabled. The RS5 is also able to automatically detect certain trackable objects, like cars, animals, or people. You'll see a gray box appear over that object or person, and you can then activate tracking for that subject by simply pressing the trigger on the front of the gimbal or tapping the subject on the screen. And if you have multiple trackable objects in front of the camera, so let's say a group of people, you can then turn the dial to toggle between them. If the person you want to start tracking is highlighted, you press the trigger on the front and tracking will be activated, or you just tap them on the screen. Anyway, all of these improved tracking features are a substantial upgrade from the intelligent tracking we saw on the RS4 series, and it actually works really well in a number of scenarios. If you're trying to pull off difficult camera moves as a solo operator, the tracking unit can be really helpful. Right here, I've got the gimbal attached to a tripod, and all I'm doing is pushing forward and then lifting the tripod up high. And this creates a nice push in followed by a crane shot. The tracking module is locked onto the talent, and this is making sure that he stays in frame throughout the entire move. Also, it's pretty cool that it's able to track animals as well if you, for example, want to get some shots from your favorite pet. It did a really good job at automatically detecting the dog here. Now, another great use case for these new tracking capabilities is when you're, for example, doing product shots. So again, here I can select the product. It's even recognizing the product in this case. Start the tracking, and then I can, for example, really easily do an orbit shot, and all I have to do is move left or right, and the gimbal is basically doing everything else, creating these really smooth orbit shots. But I think car tracking is probably going to be the one where most people are excited about. Again, the tracker does a really good job at automatically detecting the car. And I gotta say, it can be really helpful when shooting car shots like this. You can also lock onto certain details of the car, like in this case I selected the headlights, and as I'm doing a little orbit move around here, it will keep those centered. Of course, when doing rolling shots, having the enhanced intelligent tracking module lock onto the car makes things a lot easier as a solo shooter. You can do certain camera movements like lift the camera up and down, move it left or right, and the gimbal will take care of a lot of the work to keep the car framed up nicely. And by the way, let's just appreciate for a second here how good this classic Volkswagen Golf looks in these moody forest conditions. Now during my testing, I did notice that tracking performance can vary depending on how you're holding the gimbal. DJI told me that enhanced intelligent tracking works best when the gimbal is held in a more vertical, standard operating position. And in that setup, it really does work very well. However, for certain shots like really low angle moves where you physically can't hold the gimbal upright, I did see some moments where tracking wasn't quite as consistent, or the gimbal would kind of just counter steer instead of perfectly keeping the subject centered. Now, it's not something that came up all the time, but it is worth being aware of depending on how you shoot. There are also a few tracking settings you can change to get the results that you're after. When you're in the tracking mode screen, you can tap this icon in the bottom left to access the active track settings. The first thing you can do here is change the composition of your shot while tracking. You can select between keep current framing, where the gimbal will maintain whatever composition you have set up when you initiate the tracking. So if you, for example, have your subject set on the third of the frame, it's going to do its best to keep it there while you're doing your camera move. The other option is center tracking subject, and here the gimbal is going to keep your subject framed in the center when you're doing your camera movements. You can of course also use the joystick to adjust your framing when doing these tracking shots. And if you're filming a person, that person can show a double L gesture to activate a composition adjustment. After the person moves to a new position, they can show the double L gesture again, and this is now going to lock in that new composition. You can also customize these gestures in the menu if you want them to do different things. And these hand gestures are especially handy if you are using the tracking module to, for example, film yourself. So all you need to do is raise your hand like so. The tracking module will light up green, so initiating tracking. And if I move around, you can see the gimbal is now following me. So it's really easy to do that, and you can get a little bit more dynamic shots. Also, you can start and stop recording if you want to by simply hitting it with a V sign. The tracking module will blink for a second there, and in this case, recording will stop. If I hit it again, it will start recording again. Also, the active track speed can be adjusted from slow to medium to fast, and that's just going to change how fast the gimbal responds to your movements while tracking. And down here you can also calibrate the module's camera view if maybe it's off center. However, it can only move left and right and not up and down. One thing I will say here is that I wish there was an option to set this camera view screen to a 16:9 ratio. I feel it's a little bit confusing sometimes to set your composition or change it, with this screen being a 1:1 ratio when you're filming in 16:9. So hopefully this is something that DJI can maybe add in a future firmware update. Also, it's a little bit more complicated using the tracking module when shooting on longer focal lengths. The reason for that is that the tracking module basically has an ultra wide field of view, plus it's offset from the optical axis of the camera. So the difference between what the camera sees and what the tracker sees becomes increasingly different the longer your focal length is, making it harder to get a good result. It would be great if DJI could add some kind of zoom function to the calibrate setting to better match whatever focal length you're using. And for anyone wondering, the new enhanced intelligent tracking module will also be sold separately for $99 US. And yes, you can attach it to the RS4 Mini, RS4 or RS4 Pro. It will also be able to track people, vehicles, animals, or objects, but you won't get that tracking view displayed on the touchscreen of these gimbals, which is just going to make using it a little bit less convenient. Now, I haven't been able to actually test this because as I'm recording this, I'm still waiting for a firmware update on my RS4 Pro. Alright, so I don't know if you agree with me on this, but I would say that ever since the RS3 or maybe even the RS2 already, DJI basically owned the game when it comes to how easy it is to balance the gimbal. And they've kind of always continued to improve that. First, there was the addition of this knob here to move the camera backwards and forwards. Then on the RS4, the addition of Teflon coating on all the arms to make everything slide very smoothly. Well, now on the RS5, you not only get all of that stuff from the previous version, but DJI have also added these fine-tuning knobs on all the axes. So you can get all of the arms in position very precisely with minimum effort, making it even easier and faster to balance the gimbal. Especially if you, for example, are changing lenses throughout the shoot, it's super quick to make these small adjustments and rebalance the gimbal. Also a small little detail, but for me it was one of those nice moments when I was first checking out this gimbal, so check this out. The little tripod feet now all open together. So they're like connected and you only have to pull one foot and then they all open together. So if you remember on the RS4, for example, you had to opened them all separately so they weren't connected like this. And I know it's not something significant, but honestly, it's these little details and the attention to these details is why I think DJI keeps holding the crown for the best gimbals out there. Another small update has been made on the native vertical shooting system. So on the RS4 series, DJI first introduced this native vertical shooting quick release system, which we still have on the RS5, but now they've made a few little tweaks here and there to make it a little bit better. Either way, it's still super quick and easy to go from horizontal shooting to vertical shooting with this system. We also still have the automated axis lock, so if you press the power button once, the gimbal will lock all the axes, making it a lot easier and safer to carry the gimbal. And if you turn the gimbal off, so by pressing and holding the power button, the gimbal will automatically fold. Next is a nice little upgrade for anyone who likes using the briefcase handle on your gimbal. So on the RS5, we're getting a brand new electronic briefcase handle. So here you're basically getting some of the controls like you have them on the main handle. You've got a trigger in the front, a joystick, a record button, and a mode button. And this is definitely a nice upgrade whenever you're shooting at certain angles where you might not always have your hand on that main handle. So it just makes operating even easier. A few notes here, you can only mount it on the left of the gimbal because of these connections. And to be honest, I would have liked to have the option to choose between left or right, because I actually sometimes have a different arm on the left for an external monitor, and I have that on the left because my HDMI is on the left of the camera. Also, this new handle will not work on older DJI gimbals, so the RS4 or RS4 Pro are not compatible. The battery on the RS5 also got a small upgrade. It now has a 14-hour battery life in comparison to the 12 hours on the RS4 and RS4 Pro. And it can also be fully charged in 1 hour in comparison to the 2.5 hours on the RS4 and the 1.5 hours on the RS4 Pro. Now you might have noticed throughout the video another new feature on the RS5, which is this Z-axis indicator that you get on the gimbal screen. So this basically shows you how smooth you're walking and how smooth your shots are going to be. So if you're running and you get a lot of up and down movement, you'll see the Z-axis indicator get orange or even red. The idea is that the gimbal would pretty much show you if you would need to adjust your pace or walk more smoothly. And to be honest, it's fine that it's there, but I don't really see any use for me personally. I mean, I'm not paying that much attention to my gimbal screen when I'm shooting, but maybe some people find this feature useful. And if you don't want to use this Z-axis indicator and find it annoying, you can simply turn it off in the menu. When it comes to the payload capacity of the gimbal, the RS5 is able to carry 3 kilograms, which is the same as the RS4 or the RS3. The RS4 Pro and the RS3 Pro are able to carry 4.5 kilograms, and the RS4 and the RS3 Mini are able to carry 2 kilograms. So your typical mirrorless camera with something like a 24-70 or maybe even a few accessories are going to work fine on this RS5. And one last update on the DJI RS5 is that the camera Bluetooth connection on the gimbal is now also compatible with Fujifilm and Panasonic, next to the already available Sony and Canon options. Alright, so I guess the big question now is, should you upgrade to the RS5? And I mean, that question gets harder each time one of these new pieces of gear comes along. Honestly, if you really care a lot about these tracking features, and this is something that you see yourself using a lot, then yes, the RS5 is without doubt a really good upgrade from the RS3 or the RS4, or even the RS4 Mini if you don't mind a slightly heavier gimbal. All the other upgrades on the RS5 are really great to have as well, but I don't see them as being a big enough reason to necessarily upgrade though. Now, if you're rocking an RS4 Pro, I guess the question is, do you need the extra payload capacity, and are you putting bigger camera rigs on there? Which I'm guessing is why you bought the RS4 Pro and not the RS4 in the first place. Well then, in that case, don't get the RS5 and stick with your RS4 Pro. Now, if you're just looking to buy your first gimbal, then yes, 100% get the DJI RS5. It's for sure the best gimbal out there. When it comes to pricing, the RS5 combo is $719 US, the RS4 combo is $609 US, the RS4 Pro combo is $1,099 US, and the RS4 Mini combo is $459 US. Now, I think it's cool that DJI offers the new Enhanced Intelligent Tracking module separately and that it works on the RS4 gimbals. So I think this could be an option for people who just want to get some of the benefits of that new tracking module. Anyway, I would love to know what you guys think of this new gimbal and if you'll be upgrading. Let me know in the comments what your favorite new features are or what you wish DJI had added. All right, that's it for this one. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.